It is 10:03. Good morning. I'm Lucas Panzica. The NFL's first ever Week 18 kicks off tomorrow with a Saturday doubleheader starting with Chiefs and Broncos at 3:30. Later tomorrow night, it's Cowboys and Eagles at 7:15. We'll join that game in progress right here on The Zone after Tennessee basketball. All the Titans have to do to clinch the 1 seed in the AFC is to win in Houston against the Texans on Sunday. But will they have Derrick Henry available, who returned to practice this week but remains on IR? ESPN's Diana Rossini joined the Buck Reising Show on Thursday, and she doesn't think so.
You know, they really wanted to give him time. So it really makes sense to me that he's most likely not going to play against this Houston Texans team. As important of a game as this is, you know, trying to get home field advantage, trying to get that first round bye.
The League Company countdown to kickoff starts at 9 a.m. Titans countdown at 11 and kickoff with Mike Keith, Coach Mack, and the rest of the Titans radio crew is at noon right here on The Zone. Transfer portal news out of Knoxville. Tennessee pass rusher Tyler Barron has entered the portal. Barron, a former 4-star prospect who had 6.5 TFLs this season. Also running back D. Beckwith and backup long snapper Will Albright entered the portal. The Preds defeated the LA Kings 4-2 on the road last night. Philip Forsberg, a goal and an assist as Nashville remains at the top of the Central. Preds will round out the road trip tomorrow night at the Arizona Coyotes. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Friday. It's upon us. Welcome into 104.5 The Zone. Buck Reising here with you until 1 o'clock. So happy to have you along for the ride, whether you're on your way to work. I don't imagine there are many people who, well, I don't know how many people are on their way to work at 10 o'clock anyway. But whatever you're doing, I imagine many of you are at home today. So if you're hanging out with us on Zone TV, we're happy to have you, or we're happy to be with you, wherever it is that you're hanging out. 615-737-1045. You can jump in if you would like. 615-737-1045. Lucas Panzica's making it happen behind the scenes today. We're going to have Coach Dave McGinnis talk a little X's and O's, and Evan Silva of the Establish the Run will be here in the noon hour, so stick around for that. He's going to tell you why he, other than, running a website called Establish the Run, is very, very excited to see Derrick Henry back in the mix at some point. Because if you listened to the show yesterday, he's not expected to play on Sunday. But before we get to the Tyler Barron stuff, there's a bunch of different things happening in local sports. Obviously, we're going to break down the Titans and the Texans for the majority of the show. But I kind of want to start with transfer portal stuff. And even before we do that, what's happening in my mentions right now? Why are you getting me dragged? What's happened?
I'm not getting you dragged.
I think you did.
The poll question was, if the Chiefs lose tomorrow, should the Titans play starters in Houston? And people are angry.
Right. Angry at whom?
Angry at you.
Yes. And so whose good work has people angry at me?
That would be both of us, I think.
Is it?
Yeah. I don't
no accountability.
Yeah, no, I don't take blame. I don't do that.
Just not at all?
No.
Just on principle?
How
does that work out for you? You're in a relationship for a long time. How does that work out for you?
I don't know. I don't know how we're still going.
All right, we'll talk about that later. Yeah, there's a poll question out on my Twitter account. Of course, Lucas does the polls, accountability or not, every day from my Twitter account. If the Chiefs lose tomorrow, should the Titans play any starters in Houston? I think where the sticking point appears to be any starters whatsoever. Just sit everybody was your premise.
Yeah, I could have worded
I'm
that
just now reading the poll. Thank you for that. I'm glad. So there's the accountability. Yeah,
could have worded it.
Could have been done better. Thanks for that. But before we get into playoff manipulations and things of that nature, and calming these screaming masses down on social media, we got to start with this Tyler Barron story, I think. So if you are familiar, as many of you are, with the University of Tennessee football team, you know that Tyler Barron, a Knoxville native, is and has been one of the most impactful defensive players for that football team, certainly since he was recruited to Tennessee as a part of that 2020 class under Jeremy Pruitt. Now, in this, he's had 4 starts in 22 games, 6.5 tackles for loss this fall, 30 total tackles, and he was clearly an impact player, right, while they were trying to figure out their depth. And it doesn't seem like many people who follow this closely every day, admittedly, I didn't know about Tyler Barron transferring until I saw the headline from Matt Zenitz, or Zenitz, forgive me, Matt, if I've mispronounced your last name, from On3 Sports. He's very much in tune with the transfer portal part of things, but this caught me by surprise initially. Tyler Barron is as young and as promising a player for the Vols as any that was on that defense. And Luke, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong about that, Lucas, but I really, just watching this from my standpoint, as somebody who's evaluating this through the prism of, all right, is this a legit player or not? I thought that Tyler Barron was one of the more promising defensive players on this football team.
Yeah, it was a big opportunity to build on a pass rush revolving around Tyler Barron and Byron Young for 2022.
Right. And so he's since entered the transfer portal. Sports Illustrated confirmed it. Matt Zenitz of On3 Sports first reporting it. And apparently Barron's father, Patrick Abernathy, who was also a part of the Tennessee program, no longer will be a part of the Tennessee program. He was on the staff for 8 years and was most recently the director of player development. Right now, well, it doesn't say where his favorites are right now to go out of the transfer portal, but he was heavily recruited by both Kentucky and Oklahoma before he committed to Tennessee as part of that 2020 class. So this is a big blow, obviously, and it emphasizes what's happening in college football right now writ large, right? Let's look beyond the University of Tennessee and just how this impacts Josh Heupel's football team in 2022, even though that may be difficult to do right out of the gate. I think this speaks to a larger issue, and many people seem to think that this speaks to a larger issue, where we've just never seen the amount of roster upheaval in an offseason like this in any previous iteration of college football. Between the influence of name, image, and likeness, you've got, your standard tampering allegations, which are always going to be a part of this. Although what really constitutes tampering at this point, I think, would be my question about that. You got the transfer portal, which is going crazy, and it's made rosters so difficult to manage if you are a coaching staff. It's not good. Well, here's what I'll say, because I don't know that it's outright bad for college football. I know it's worse for the fans, and maybe that means to you listening or watching, if it's worse for the fans, then that inherently makes it worse for college football. I would dispute that notion. I would say to you that this needing to level the playing field, for lack of a better cliche, between the labor and the people who are controlling the sport, there has needed to be this closer to equity for, decades of what college football has been as big business. Unconstitutional, literally by law, according to the NCAA. That's why the name, image, and likeness situations exist. I don't know necessarily, and I read David Ubben this morning of The Athletic, who did a really well-done column on this about there being truly only one fix to stop the chaotic roster turnover. But even then, I think that you're going to see this. Coaches are considering it out of control. And here's the quote that really, really bothered me. And it comes from Dabo, unsurprisingly. Quote, "It's chaos right now. Tampering galore, adults manipulating young men." This was from Dabo this week, who is saying that education is like the last thing right now. Well, has that not always been the case? Why are we treating this like this is some kind of new phenomenon? Is not recruitment a form, and maybe people don't consider this, but I consider recruitment to be a form of manipulation. Now, you're offering a young man or woman, in the case of all college sports, you're offering a scholarship and the opportunity to have at least a full ride or partial scholarship that takes a great burden of the cost of a collegiate education off your plate. That's the argument that the old heads in college football or in college sports would say justifies this, which is, of course, ridiculous because there's billions of dollars being made. And college education is already wildly overpriced. For any of you who are still paying off your student loans, I think many of you would agree with that premise. But that quote kills me. It's chaos right now. Tampering galore, adults manipulating young man. And the kicker on all of that is education is like the last thing right now. Where's Cardale Jones? We didn't come here to play school. Came here to play football. Why is that different than what's happening now? Why is that different than anything that's been happening across the decades in college football? It's just, I don't know why college football coaches like Dabo, who are going to hurt themselves with this, because kids are going to see this. Parents of recruits are going to see this. They're going to be like, all right, you want to go back to the way things were? Too bad. It's changed. Move on. Adapt or die. Now, Dabo is going to end up being okay. Clemson, what he's built there is sustainable, even though I think we declared earlier, Lucas, that they are doomed. The reign of Clemson is done. Now that NIL and all of this is in place, and Dabo's sitting here shaking a fist at the sun about.
I mean, we'll see, right? I don't think the book's written on that.
Well, no. In fact, I think you were the one beating the drum on the book being written on that.
I'm just saying, we'll see.
All right, Franz, thank you. Thank you for your strong opinion. Here's what I want to ask the audience: 615-737-1045. How concerned are you with the transfer portal's impact on college football? We got an SEC stat of the day for you as well. We're obviously going to spend the vast majority of the show talking Titans and Texans later on. But I want to start with this college football concept because I think there's a legitimate concern, and I'm concerned, right? College football is being denigrated across the board. My favorite sport, just as a fan, is college basketball. College basketball has been nuked, has been stripped down to its studs, basically, in a way that makes me not love my favorite sport anymore. I don't want to see that happen to college football, and I think this could be a part of it. But I want to know from you as a college football fan, how concerned are you with the transfer portal's impact? 615-737-1045. I'm Buck Reising. It's 1045 The Zone. Welcome back on this, not quite, it's snowy, snow on the ground. No more snow physically coming down at this point. Hope everybody is safe, warm, wherever you're hanging out with us today. We appreciate you spending your Friday with us. Talking about this transfer portal stuff before we pivot into the NFL. Don't forget we got Lucas's SEC stat of the day coming up next. But my question to you has been, what most concerns you about the transfer portal in college football? We're talking about this morning in particular because Tyler Barron, the Vols defensive end, edge rusher, outside linebacker, depending on where they choose to line him up or where they've chosen to line him up, he's in the transfer portal. And basically, I thought it was a good reminder for people, don't count on anybody at this point being a lock to be on your roster this coming season. I think that this has thrown so much into flux. And I don't want to say that it's out of control, as it seems, if you've read The Athletic and what David Ubben, who formerly covered the Vols, now covers college football as a whole for The Athletic. By the way, you see that got bought by the New York Times? Yeah, big deal. Be interesting to see how that ends up working out. I don't know if, because I pay for both of those, I don't know if that makes my New York Times subscription more expensive or if that makes my Athletic subscription cheaper if I'm just going to end up paying the same amount for both. Either way, regardless, worth it for good quality journalism. In the transfer portal, it's being described by people within the sport as out of control. And by the way, by a lot of my colleagues in the college football side of things as being out of control. We have Josh Pate of CBS Sports HQ and 247 on all the time. Now, Lucas, this is from his Late Kick show, the clip that you're about to play for people. This is Josh Pate describing why he believes, as somebody who understands this and the trajectory of college football because of the transfer portal, NIL, and everything that's come together in this perfect storm that's created our first real crack at college football free agency. Josh Pate is here to tell you why he thinks it's just gone too far.
The portal / NIL, it won't continue down this road. It's like a chariot that's just on fire and it's rolling down the street. Someone's eventually going to put it out. There will be parameters. I fully believe we're approaching an era where some form of checks and balances and parameters are put in place, far more so than what NCAA headquarters has allowed so far. The NCAA walked in and they said, hey, NIL, it's a go. Transfer portal, it's a go. Bye. They left. They just left. It's like the uncle who comes over to your house if you have children and you got a 6-year-old kid here and the uncle comes over and pumps him full of Red Bull and candy canes, and then about 9:15 he says, well, see you later. And you have to deal with a kid. It's like a pinball.
Red Bull and candy canes. That sounds like something that would create a nuke. That sounds like a bomb. I don't necessarily disagree with him, and I understand his concern, right? Because this is what Chris Childers has been telling us since this summer. Forget everything you know about college football and how the landscape is going to fundamentally shift underneath our feet in just one season. Take, for example, quarterback Caleb Williams, right? Who was quarterbacking Oklahoma after they benched Spencer Rattler. He won the Alamo Bowl. Less than a week later, he decided not to return to Oklahoma. Now, he has not completely ruled out Oklahoma and the potential to return to it, but he said, yeah, let's see what my options are out here. So he's entered the transfer portal. Now, there is perhaps a good reason for it, right? There's a new offensive coordinator now in Norman, Jeff Levy, who was the OC under Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss. He is now going to be the Oklahoma Sooners offensive coordinator. And so Caleb Williams did exactly what Spencer Rattler did without the getting bench part. He went in the transfer portal. The difference is that Spencer Rattler was projected potentially as the first overall pick in this upcoming draft in the preseason Heisman candidate. Of course, that got nuked. And what did Oklahoma do in response? Do you recall? They put out an unprecedented joint statement from the athletic director and the new head coach, Brent Venables, basically trumpeting how many benefits there are for any person who would choose to stay at Oklahoma. Now, they did get Dylan Gabriel out of this, who had committed to UCLA, but now is going to be at Oklahoma, which one would imagine would rule out any idea or any possibility, any real possibility that Caleb Williams would change his mind and pull a Miles Brennan, enter the transfer portal out of LSU, and then just decide to go back because the options out there weren't better than where he was. But here's where this gets sticky, because we're still technically in this discovery phase, no? This is where things get really interesting. How many of you, and this is an audio medium, but we'll do a visual gag, raise your hand if you remember Charlie Batch. Anybody recall? Lucas, you don't? You don't have any idea who Charlie Batch is?
He was a quarterback somewhere?
A backup quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers for a long time. And he played at Eastern Michigan. He is publicly offering, as a part of an NIL deal, one NIL deal, publicly offering Caleb Williams $1 million in NIL money to come to Eastern Michigan. This just turned into a bidding war. So now the door is open. Take, for example, Miami. Miami wasn't spending, what are they spending for Mario Cristobal? It's got to be, it's somewhere like $8 million a year. The whole thing with Miami was they didn't think that they'd been existing in this Jimmy Johnson-like state of mind for the past 30 years of college football, thinking that they did not need to go out and hire the big-name coach because the school makes the coach, not the other way around, except not anymore, kids. So what does Miami do once the piggy bank's open? I'll go spend money for Mario Cristobal. Why not? We made it somewhere like $400 million with Miami U Health last year during the middle of the pandemic. So why not? Crack open the piggy bank. Let's go get the big-name coach for $8 million a year in a way that they've never done before. And what's happened at Miami? Now Miami's back in the game. Now it feels like there's a legitimate commitment because you've stripped away the rules on this thing. And from my standpoint, from my perspective, I don't think that that's wrong. It's been like this. Now we're all publicly admitting it. I think the thing that bothers people about college football, and you're welcome to jump in on this conversation at any point, 615-737-1045 is the number. I think the thing that bothers most people, I don't want to speak for everybody, but most people, based on the interactions that we see on this stuff, is that college football has just barreled headfirst into this. You didn't have really any, at least if you're a fan of the sport, there was no grace period. There was no easing into this transition and kind of, doing it in phases. We just went, all right, the money's there. Now everybody wants a piece. And now that the athletes are able to make money, by the way, and still not righting the overarching injustice, which is that the schools aren't paying the kids. Now they're just finding ways for other people to pay the kids to go to the schools or the kids who are attending the schools. None of this money, from a legal standpoint, is running through the university, because then you get into a much more nebulous situation. But college football just went face first into this. They stuck their nose into the buzzsaw, and now the dollars are flying everywhere, and people are concerned that this is going to strip away what makes college football special. And I guess my thing is, what is it that makes college football special? The idea that, this is something that you're born into, that your rooting interest as a college football fan, whether your family, diehard Tennessee fans, whether you grew up going to Tennessee Vols games at Neyland Stadium, and this has been so embedded in your life, you create a tradition around it. Maybe you went to the university. Maybe then your kids went to the university. So it just kind of continues this long-standing tradition of tailgate, of communal experience around the football team or whatever, basketball, whatever your sport is, lacrosse, rowing, I don't know, whatever. That's at the core of things, the community around college football and how deep those roots run. That's what really makes college football feel so much different from the pros. But the thing is, that's just been kind of that whole idea, that whole romanticism of college football and the allure of it and the Rose Bowl parade and things like this that seem from a different time, from a different era, where in 2021, I'm looking at the Rose Bowl parade and being like, who is watching this? Who is seeking? Is this an event for anybody anymore outside of the people who live in the town where the Rose Bowl parade is being held? I don't care about this. Give me the football. Give me the best games. Give me the best teams. Give me the best athletes. The pomp and circumstance, I understand what it is. I understand that it doesn't necessarily matter anymore to the sport. Now, I'm doing that because I don't have those deep-rooted college football ties like so many of you do. One, Indiana's wretched, my alma mater, wretched at college football, even though they did get, they got Connor Bazelak out of the transfer portal, the Missouri quarterback. But from the standpoint of that, I just don't get why people are so unwilling to look at this and say, all right, the world has completely changed about college football. And maybe you're loath to do it. Everybody hates change, right? No, nobody in any element of your life. Change is something that people are slow to adapt to, slow to adjust to, unwilling to do so. But I think more than anything, all it's done is it's been like this. You've just had that tradition of college football and the history of it covering up all the parts that you think are gross and icky and, sullying the good name, the reputation of the sport that I think a lot of people hold to a higher standard of morality for whatever reason than they do the pros. When all it is, it's a minor league. That's all college football is anymore. The only difference between this season and, let's say, 2019, because I think the pandemic kind of exposed a lot of this too. I think the difference between this season, the seasons that will come, and like 2019 is that, now we've just made it clear and obvious to everybody. Now this is what college football is. It's been that way, but we've just, been lying to ourselves about what it is that college football actually represents in the larger scheme of things. Does that make sense to people? I feel like it does.
Yeah, but college football is different things to different people, right? It means different things to different people.
So elaborate.
I mean, it is what it is, right? When you talk about it being a minor league for the NFL, et cetera, that is what it is. But for a lot of people, it's also, with all that sort of pushed to the side, it is literally a religion.
Okay.
So to people that grew up in, southern or middle Alabama, college football is literally everything. They could care less about the NFL. They don't care that it's a minor league for the NFL. They don't want to see that part of it. It's just, it is what it is to them as far as a religion every Saturday of whether or not their team wins. All other stuff aside.
And I'm glad you brought that up because it is, not to be, I don't want to blaspheme or whatever. Like I'm not trying to get into, I'm not trying to get into that part of the conversation. But yeah, you can look at it as a form of religion, right? What do you do? Like the NFL is competing on Sundays for your religion. It could be the religion of football. It could be, whatever else, Catholicism. Maybe you're a Methodist. Baptist, whatever. That's competing for your attention on Sundays in a way that it used to be or has traditionally been church. This is a different kind of church. Now, maybe you believe Neyland Stadium to be your holy ground. Maybe you think that Bryant-Denny Stadium is as religious an experience within the proper context as anything that exists. Maybe that is how you're looking at it. But can that continue? Because I've just told you that Santa Claus isn't real, but you're going to continue to put the milk and cookies out every Saturday night before the Crimson Tide plays or before the Vols play. And I wonder how long people are going to continue with that just for their own, comfort, because it's what they know, it's what they're used to doing, as opposed to kind of just being, and complaining, by the way, about the way things are now. And maybe there will always be that segment of the population that just hates it, and isn't willing to kind of accept what this thing currently is.
People can hate it and not accept it and not like what's happening with the sport, but they're still going to show up and see their team every Saturday, probably for the rest of their lives.
Okay, but how much, because we've made this much more corporate, right? The SEC at some point is going to become a super conference. And at what point does that just gravitate towards the super teams as opposed to Southern Alabama or I don't know why I'm going with Alabama directional schools, but UAB or or MTSU. Let's make it local. At what point does it complete? And maybe that's already happened because the Vols are the biggest thing in the state, even though MTSU I think is technically the biggest state school, by student population, if I'm not mistaken on that. I think that there's so much there that it's just going to streamline it, where that's already been the case, and maybe that's always been the case, but now you're just completely, you're all but eradicating these smaller programs across college athletics and saying, yeah, come join the super conference. It's way more fun. We got Texas playing Oklahoma, but now it's the SEC. Now it's big time. Now it means something.
But if anything, you're leaving those programs as now the purest form of the sport.
Yeah, but I don't care about the purest form of the sport.
I'm just saying that doesn't affect the fan bases of those programs.
I think you may be underselling that. I think that more people, right? Okay, so I feel like we're going to alienate the audience if we do this, but like Super League, right? In soccer, in English soccer, how pissed were you about the Super League thing?
Very.
And kind of explain to people the concept of the Super League.
It was essentially about 20 teams from across Europe, 20 of the biggest, most powerful, richest teams in Europe that wanted to come together and form a league where they just play each other and essentially alienate every other club across the European soccer landscape from first, second, third levels, divisions of professional soccer in Europe.
Now, fans rioted.
Oh, it was.
Fans lost their mind.
Yes.
That's the one time where I've seen fans straight up cause a sea change as far as what the corporate dollars suggested that the sport do.
Well, because a lot of it was American corporate driven, and European fans fought back hard against that because Jay Glazer was one of the faces of it, right? The owner of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who happens to own
not the Jay Glazer that was reporting on Derrick Henry's foot, the other Jay Glazer.
Right.
Important clarification.
The owner of Manchester United and the Super Bowl champs.
Not Jay Glazer out here running the UFC gym.
Stan Kroenke, the owner of the LA Rams and Arsenal. A lot of the faces that drove the Super League, not all, but a lot of them were American corporate faces. Yeah.
You know where you could get away with that? Right here in the good old USA. I don't think anybody's pushing back on the SEC as a Super League. I think people are just kind of resigned to the fact that, okay, Texas and Oklahoma, now they're going to play in the SEC. This is just what the new normal is going to be.
Well, but that would be like not just the SEC. That would be like if Alabama, Georgia, Texas, and Oklahoma, and then Oregon and USC, and then Ohio State and Big Ten all decided, no, we're just going to form our own league. Everybody else, Kentucky, Missouri, Fresno State, Cal, Stanford, y'all screwed.
I don't know that something that drastic happens, but I don't think we're that far away from something like that. What college and ESPN has a lot to do with this, right? Because ESPN is kind of the dark, shadowy figures in all of this because that's where the corporate television dollars are controlled. The television contracts dictate that this should be so. I could do this all day, but when we come back, we'll do the Lucas's SEC stat of the day. We'll pivot into Titans and Texans talk. Coach Dave McGinnis is going to join us at 11:20, and then it's NFL basically the rest of the way through because the Titans have the ability to clinch the 1 seed. And when we get into it later on, I'm going to tell you what one thing is going to determine that if they can do that on Sunday. SEC stat of the day coming up next. Your phone calls as well. 615-737-1045. I'm Buck Reising. It is 1045 The Zone. Oh, I just saw something pop up on the Zone Twitter account. If you're a Preds fan, you can tune in later today to Blaine and Mickey. They've got 2 chances, not 1, but 2, for you to win tickets to see the Preds take on the Avalanche this Tuesday at Bridgestone Arena. 1:40 and 2:40 p.m. will be your chances to win. Very nice. Not that you weren't already going to listen to Blaine and Mickey, but now you got a little juice. A couple of Preds tickets, potentially.
Another win last night.
Man, what is going on in the state of Tennessee? Grizzlies are kicking ass. They beat the holy hell. Who'd they beat last night? They beat the Blazers?
I thought maybe Brooklyn.
No. They didn't beat. If they beat the Nets, that's a much bigger story because the Nets are just
Pistons. It was
Pistons.
the Pistons.
I'm sorry, wrong colors. Right colors.
The 7-30 Detroit Pistons.
Well, there's that.
But I mean, it's
but
real,
they're the tops in the Southwest Division that I had no idea existed until you came in here and told me that the Southwest Division was a thing. No, it's not. There have been divisions in basketball for a while. I just have no idea what they are.
They don't matter, though, right? I mean, it's just the Western and Eastern Conference.
No, I think it's just some way. Yeah, that's the way that people actually separate the NBA. The NBA as a sport, not by the divisions. I defy anybody to call into this radio show today and name me all of the divisions in the NBA.
Impossible.
Because I love watching basketball, but like even I can't watch the NBA right now. There's dudes playing. You got Mario Chalmers out there on what's called a hardship contract because COVID is running through. You've got dudes like Mario Chalmers playing for one team on one night, and then you turn it on like 2 days later, and he's playing for the team. He's playing against the team that he was just on a couple of days ago. Like, this is insane.
Can we put it to a poll? Can you name any of the NBA's divisions?
Well, we've just given them one. I mean, not that the polls are scientific, but yeah, I zero idea. But anyway, Preds, top of their division, and I think they're the second best team in the conference right now, Lucas, if you would fact check me on that. Titans sitting in the 1 seed in their conference. State of Tennessee pro sports teams really, really rolling at this point. Grizz are 26-14. They got the Clippers tomorrow. Should be a good game. Preds with a win last night, and they will be at Arizona this Saturday as well. You can watch that on ESPN Plus. Do you like hockey? Have you been watching hockey on ESPN?
Yeah, it's been pretty good. The coverage has been solid.
Okay.
I was watching, I guess it wasn't on ESPN last night, but they are 1 point back of the Vegas Golden Knights in the Western Conference, sitting in second, and they did just beat the Golden Knights the other night on the road.
Are these callers people that are going to name us divisions in the NBA? I don't know if that's true. 615-737-1045 is the number. We'll jump into the SEC stat of the day momentarily. Don't forget that Coach Dave McGinnis going to join us at 11:20, and our buddy Evan Silva, who's going to make his debut on the radio show at 12:20 today. I don't imagine that's an NBA divisions call that's sitting there on my call screener, Lucas. I don't imagine that's the case.
Might be.
Do you want to find out, or you want to do the SEC stat of the day first?
Let's do the stat of the day first.
All right, give me the stat.
You never know where this could lead. The stat of the day in the SEC is the number 68. That is the number of players in the SEC that are currently in the transfer portal without a destination.
Wait, give me that number again?
68.
Woo! How many players total currently just exist? Do you have that number in front of you?
It would take me way too long to count.
Okay.
As far as guys that have already committed somewhere. It's at least twice that number.
Oof.
But 68 former SEC players are sitting in the portal right now.
Floating.
Just floating in there. In college football purgatory. Only one SEC school doesn't have any players in the portal. Who do you think that is?
Ooh. Only one SEC Vandy.
No, Vandy has quite a few, actually. 6 or 7.
Okay.
It's Georgia.
Well, that makes sense.
Nobody leaving that program.
Even Alabama.
Yep.
Wonder what Kirby Smart is doing. Because Dabo figured this out pre-transfer portal, right? Had to keep guys in school on the team past the point where they could declare the NFL draft. It's how Clemson's had some of the nastiest defensive lines throughout the course of their stretch run in college football because they've been able to keep these guys together and in the program for so long. That's curious. I don't know how teams are going to be able to manage that because that's going to be the anomaly, right? At some point, Georgia and Kirby Smart are going to have to deal with the transfer portal or attrition through the transfer portal. 68 SEC players just sitting there. You know, I honestly, the more that I think about this, the more that I feel like this is a good thing. Because does this not mean that there's going to be some kind of talent dispersal across programs where these guys would otherwise not go because of playing opportunity? Like, for example, we talked about Charlie Batch earlier offering Caleb Williams, the former Oklahoma quarterback, maybe not quite yet former Oklahoma quarterback, but the Oklahoma quarterback who's currently in the transfer portal. Charlie Batch is offering $1 million to him in NIL money just to have him come play at Eastern Michigan. Between that and the transfer portal, does that not help with the parity? I would have to imagine.
Sure, but Caleb Williams ain't going to Eastern Michigan. All Charlie
keep up in that number, Charlie.
All Charlie Batch did was set a standard for USC to one up.
Hey, what's my guy's name that's at Jackson State with Deion? The top overall
Travis Hunter.
Travis Hunter, the
corner.
top overall crew. Don't tell me that Caleb Williams can't go to Eastern Michigan. I'm not. I don't think there is anything that is any program that is beneath any player in college football right now if the money's right.
Fair enough, but I think that those are two different conversations, because with Travis Hunter, you're talking about the most seismic move in college football recruiting history to go play for an HBCU, and Deion Sanders. Yeah, it's an HBCU, but they are in the spotlight. Jackson State is in the spotlight of college football with what Prime has done over there. I don't think that'd be the case with Caleb Williams at Eastern Michigan. You're a quarterback. Go where you can be developed and become a first-round draft pick.
We will see.
All Eastern Michigan did there was hand Williams a free,
give the bidding the bidding start. Yeah. Bidding starts at $1 million. What else you got?
Oh, thanks, guys. Hey, Eastern Michigan offered me $1 million. What you got, Lincoln? What company can you get over there in LA to one up that?
Plenty. Trust and know. When we come back, we're gonna leave the minor leagues alone for the moment being, and we will pivot to the NFL. When we come back, I'm going to tell you how one player has impacted more and can be attributed more of the Titans' defensive success than any other player on this roster. And it's not Jeff Simmons. I'll tell you who that is and why that is coming up next. Your phone calls as well. Coach Mack at 11:20, so stick around. Titans Talk on the way on 104.5 The Zone.
It is 11:01. Good morning. I'm Lucas Panzica. The NFL's first ever Week 18 kicks off tomorrow with a Saturday doubleheader. It starts with Chiefs and Broncos at 3:30. A Kansas City loss and a Bengals loss would clinch the Titans the 1 seed no matter what happens in Houston. But the Titans do control their own destiny. If they defeat the Texans Sunday, they will clinch the 1 seed in the AFC. Later tomorrow night, it's Cowboys and Eagles at 7:15. That game will be joined in progress on 104.5 The Zone after Tennessee basketball. So the Titans in Houston on Sunday, but will they have Derrick Henry? He returned to practice this week, but remains on IR. ESPN's Diana Rossini joined the Buck Reising Show earlier this week, and she doesn't think so.
You know, they really wanted to give him time. So it really makes sense to me that he's most likely not going to play against this Houston Texans team. As important of a game as this is, you know, trying to get home field advantage, trying to get that first round bye.
The League Company countdown to kickoff starts at 9 on Sunday. Titans countdown at 11 and kickoff with Mike Keith, Coach Mack, and the rest of the Titans radio crew is at noon right here on The Zone. The Preds defeated the LA Kings 4-2 on the road last night. Philip Forsberg stays hot with a goal and an assist. Nashville remains at the top of the Central, second in the Western right now behind Vegas. Preds will round out the road trip tomorrow night at the Arizona Coyotes. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
All right, welcome back. Welcome in. And if you're just now joining us here on 104.5 The Zone, happy Friday. Full send. That is the objective on this Football Friday, and we're happy to have you involved. Now, I told you if you've been listening with us through the commercial break that we're going to talk about the one player who has had the greatest impact on the Titans' defense this year. And we are going to get to that because Coach Dave McGinnis is going to join us in about 15 minutes, and we'll talk about that with Mac. But I lied to you because there has been new news. I guess new news is still news, idiot. That we have to stop everything that we're doing. We have to bring it to a screeching halt. In fact, Lucas, give me the sound that I absolutely despise, that I detest with every fiber of my being. Give it to me.
Breaking sports news on 104.5 The Zone.
According to Ian Rappaport, the Jaguars plan to interview former Texans coach Bill O'Brien for their vacant head coaching job next week after Alabama plays in the national championship.
Not yes, hell yes.
On Monday, source said. John Reed, 64, had the timing first. Yo, you gotta be kidding me.
Make it happen.
Do it. Jacksonville, you cowards. They can't be serious, can they?
Make it happen so he can come in and overthrow Trent Baalke, the current GM in Jacksonville.
Put it on a poll. What does Trent Baalke need more as the GM of the Jags? Bill O'Brien is his coach or a hole in the head? You gotta be kidding me. What do you think right now if you're a Jags fan? Because you've seen the news reports about what they're planning to do in Jacksonville this weekend. Because this whole, V for Vendetta movement that Jags fans are orchestrating instead of, except they're not using Guy Fawkes masks like they did in the V for Vendetta movie. They're just using the clown emojis. Every Jags fan on the internet has changed their profile picture to a clown emoji with a Shad Khan mustache. They're planning on dressing up at the Jags-Colts game this weekend in Jacksonville as clowns. What does this do to you if you're a Jags fan?
No hope.
None. The cycle of ineptitude continues. What can you do but laugh at this? I thought it was an Onion headline. The Jags plan to interview, and listen, they're not going to hire him. There's nothing to guarantee that they're going to hire him, but this is, I don't even know what to say. other than, what are you doing? Imagine, all right, I'm going to need some help from Chris Mad Dog Russo. Imagine that I'm Trent Baalke and Shad Khan is coming into my office or calling me on the bat phone or whatever, coming up to me and saying, hey, Trent, you know, I know you had a tough time, been a difficult year. We're looking forward to kind of building on whatever momentum exists right now in the depths of Jacksonville, Florida. But here's what we're thinking, bud. I'm thinking we're going to bring in Bill O'Brien.
Right from the beginning.
Shut the hell up. Shut up. Keep your mouth shut.
But wait. But just wait, Trent. It's okay. He has an understanding of the division. He understands how the AFC South works. Doesn't that make it feel a little better?
Shut up. Stay low.
What, you stay low? We can't get any lower. We're already the worst team in the NFL. What do you want me to do, Trent?
Say that to me. Say that to anybody. Say it to somebody.
That was really well done by you. Bravo.
That one fits.
I can't stop laughing at this. What the Jags have had double-digit losses every season in the last 10 years outside of the AFC Championship run that they went on with Blake Bortles and that crazy Jags defense with Calais Campbell and Jalen Ramsey and Miles Jack and so many other good players. And now it's just an eternal hellhole. I already think so little of the city of Jacksonville. And I know people in Jacksonville who I like. I know people who cover the Jags who I like. I have friends who work for the Jags in various departments. I pity them today. I want to text my friends who work with the Jags and be like, hey, bud, you okay? You need something?
You know who else I think is thrilled to hear that news?
Everybody in the AFC South?
And Bama fans.
Oh, to get him out of there? I don't know.
I'm not saying he's done a bad job, but I am saying I have a lot of Alabama fans on my timeline, having grown up in Birmingham. A lot of my best friends that went to Alabama, my girlfriend, that has been the most common thread of complaints amongst Alabama fans this season is the play calling on offense from Bill O'Brien.
Well, and you can't look at the semifinal and being like, look, Bill figured it out. No, Cincinnati's playing a 3-3-5 defense, and turns out Nick Saban can just run the ball on you when you're playing a 3-3-5 with much, much smaller players. Like, it's not that difficult to figure out. But I mean, honestly, I think that Bill O'Brien's game plan in the SEC championship, I thought that was one of the biggest reasons why they just whomped Georgia.
Agreed.
So, I mean, you know, you could do worse in the college level. I don't know if you could do. I mean, listen, Bill O'Brien won the AFC South a bunch of times. Like, he's been to the playoffs a bunch of times. All of these different things. But
he's a decent coach. Got Penn State out of a horrid situation and kind of stabilized it.
No, the job he did at Penn State, whatever you think of Bill O'Brien, the job he did at Penn State, I don't know how many people could have done that and gotten an NFL head coaching. In fact, that's the biggest reason why he was an NFL head coach, because that was a masterful job that he did. That was an impossible situation.
Problem is the Jags don't need a decent coach. They need something much more than that.
No, they need football Jesus to descend from the heavens and just basically they need the purge is what they need. They need a completely new organization. They need new ownership. They need new players. They need a new general manager. I mean, they need a new city because Jacksonville as a whole, it's descending into the Atlantic Ocean at any given point. Just drizzling constantly with rain, just a gray film that emanates over the city of Jacksonville. And now you're potentially getting butt-chin Bill O'Brien to come in here and wreck your roster the way that he did with the Houston Texans. Don't give him personnel control, Trent. God. This is my favorite story of the football season. Not Urban Meyer. That's not true. The Urban Meyer experience. Just the Jags. How can the Jacksonville Jaguars continue to do this?
The gift that keeps giving.
Bless them for their stupidity. I want to call Mike DiRocco at ESPN and just be like, buddy, your job has to be amazing. You don't get to cover winning football, but you're like the TMZ of the NFL. It's incredible. All right, we'll talk to Coach Mack about this. Actually, let's get Darrington first, and then we'll go to Coach Mack. Darrington is up first on 104.5 The Zone. Hello, my friend.
Hello. Hey, what's the amusement about? This is Jacksonville. We're talking about AEW.
Yeah.
What do you expect? It's going to be a show. Let's just get along for the ride.
Yeah, but the show that they're putting on in wrestling, Darrington, it's a good product. They're like actually pushing the WWE. This thing that they're doing in the NFL is just, it's useless. It's a waste of everybody's time.
But they want it for the excitement factor, the wow. Hey, we're not going to win games, but we are going to excite you. We're going to give you something to talk about.
I'm excited.
What they say. Hey, you see, exactly. Hey, even when they say bad rep is still good rep because you're still getting rep at all, you're talking about Jacksonville. If it wasn't for this, would you even be talking to Jacksonville?
Nope.
No, you wouldn't. Exactly. Oh, so another thing. I sit and I listen to 104.5 The Zone every day. And I have to listen to all this UT crap all the time. And I got to listen to all this other crap. You don't put some respect on this NBA and the Memphis Grizzlies. And, yes, there are 6 divisions in the NBA. I just don't let that be known. And John Morant and Memphis Grizzlies, they beat the Lakers, and they came back the next week, and they beat those same Brooklyn Nets. So they go your story that you was looking for right there. Yeah, John Morant, he dropped 36 on them. I just want to let you know, hey, Memphis is doing something, and the NBA is reputable. So I just want to let that be known. All right, y'all guys be safe, stay warm.
And name the divisions. You don't get off the hook that easily. Name the divisions. Do it.
You have the Atlantic, the Pacific, the Northwest, the Southwest, and the Central. Anything else, sir?
No. That's all. Thank you, Darrington.
You're welcome.
Oh, God.
Wow, well done.
You didn't think you're the one who whispered in my ear, make him name it.
He rattled him off.
What are you trying to do today?
Is John Morant an MVP candidate?
Yes. Although LeBron, here's the thing though about the Lakers, and I know nobody wants to talk about the NBA right now. We're going to do Titans talk with Coach Mack up next. But what is happening with John Morant? And I think that people in the state of Tennessee, I know that Nashville doesn't care about the Grizzlies and Memphis doesn't care about the Preds. Like, I understand, okay? All of those things. But what you are witnessing, if you are seeing even highlights of Ja, is this dude is involved. In fact, they're running them on SportsCenter right now. They're 26-14. Grizz have their 7th straight win. He's averaging 25 points, 5.8 rebounds, 6.6 assists. And Desmond Bane, honestly, might be the most improved player in the NBA playing alongside him. They've been great. Desmond Bane shooting almost 42% from 3. Anyway, that's your NBA update for the day. I just got the wrap it up signal for those of you watching on Zone TV from Lucas. All right, Titans talk. Coach Mack next. A little earlier on a Friday for the Mac Attack, as Blaine Bishop calls it. Coach Dave McGinnis is here with us on 104.5 The Zone. I assume his phone issues have been corrected. I assume that Coach Mac is here and ready to share his insights and analysis with the people, courtesy of our friends at Farm Bureau Health Plans. Hello, Mac. Can you hear me?
Well, Buck, I'm good. Yes, absolutely. Everything's clear. I think I need to start a GoFundMe so I can get a new phone, but I got a new SIM card, so I'm good.
Well, we're happy to have you back as a part of the show. This is going to be an interesting game, Mac, because of how the first time around went. We understand that the turnovers caused them to lose that game more than anything, but I'm fascinated. I've really enjoyed watching Zach Cunningham, since he's been in the league, but in particular having such a close-up view of him on a week-in, week-out basis since they claimed him off waivers. I can't wait to see how active he is. I just love how violent he plays the football game.
Yeah, he's given them a nice element there at that second level. And you've got four guys there now at that second level at the linebacker position that can truly play. And they each bring a different set of skills, to the position. And so, that helps. That's tremendous competition there. I've always liked him as a player. Violent is exactly what he is. And you can put a lot of packages together. And I'm sure that he realizes that he's playing the team that didn't want him. So that's always interesting too. When you go do that. But over and above any of that stuff, this is a game, the Titans have got to go in there and take care of business. You work all season to get to this point. Now you've got to go close the deal. And their laser focus, I'm around that team a lot during the week. Their laser focus is this game and this game only.
And that's exactly how it needs to be. The AFC is entirely within their grasp. All they have to do is win, and they handle their own destiny. Mac, just kind of sticking with the defense right now, we've been talking a lot about, really all season long, Denico Autry and his impact on this defense. He's not a man of many words, but my God, is his play impressive. They line him up so often on the edge, Mac, but for how often he stunts and they use him in games with either Harold or with Jeff or with Dupree to kind of increase that pressure and take advantage of situations where you can get him matched up on a guard. How impressive has he been to you? I know that you were familiar with him, obviously, before he came to Tennessee.
Well, let's just talk about that whole defensive front to begin with.
Yeah.
I talk to defensive coaches around the league, and especially defensive line coaches, because this group has really started to step up. Here's what's impressive about this whole group, Buck. You've got people that are playing lockout football. They're playing gap conscious, and sometimes as a defensive lineman, you can do great things and not have a lot of stats. And that's what this group is. It's a very unselfish group. Denico Autry fits right in there because when you've got guys, voiding gaps and swimming and playing jazz up inside and trying to just get back there and stack grab for tackles or maybe, try to void a gap and try to rush the passer before it's time to rush the passer, then all of a sudden you've got a popcorn effect going on at the second and third levels because the gaps aren't clean. This group has done a really nice job of staying very, very disciplined and violent up front. And Jeffrey Simmons is a great example. He shoots his hands and he knocks back, but he plays it. He plays what he's supposed to play, and then they all get to the ball. Denico Autry, look, he was a problem when he was at Indy. Anybody that just had to watch the times that we played him at the Titans whenever he was at Indy, he was a problem. And that's why they wanted him here, and he's become a big part of what's going on. But this defensive line rotation and playing with the type of discipline and physical violence that they are, this is what's helping this defense.
Coach Dave McGinnis of Titans Radio is here with us on 104.5 The Zone. Of course, you can hear Mac and Mike Keith on the call noon Central Time kickoff here on 104.5 The Zone. Titans and Texans coming your way this Sunday. Mac, with that being said, like as a coach in the NFL for so many years and as somebody who's still so very much attached to this game, I feel like every time I talk to coaches about like what are the most important things on a football team, obviously quarterback competence. I feel like a lot of coaches would put a good, knowledgeable center up there as well, but I don't know that there's anything that's more important than the ability to get pressure with 4. I think that's made all the difference in the world for this iteration of the defense versus what we saw a year ago.
Well, and you're absolutely right, and especially in today's game, because it's become such a horizontal game now, too, because of all the rules that have changed as to what you can do in the open field. And so the more people that you can have in coverage, I mean, we can talk a little another layer of ball here. You got 5 eligibles on every play,
right?
Except the quarterback's the 6th eligible when he's in shotgun. When he's under center, he's not eligible. So we've cleared that up. But you've got 5 eligibles on every play. So if the ball is going to be spun through the air and you can get pressure and really knock a quarterback out of rhythm, either by hitting him or hurrying his clock up or keeping him within a cylinder or whatever you have to do to throw off the timing between he and the people that he is throwing it to, regardless of whether they are 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 in the progression, then you can cover with 7. Well, 7, again, I'm not very smart, but 7 is more than 5. Okay,
that's
so
correct.
Now you're able to do some combination things, and so, but it all starts with a legitimate ability to bring pressure with 4, and you're 100% right.
Mac, with that secondary, Jackrabbit stands out to me in the last month or so, basically, or at least since he's been able to return from injury. We know that he's been in and out of the lineup throughout the course of the year, but Jackrabbit really has made his presence felt in these last couple of games. Is there anything different there about how he's playing the position, or does he just look more comfortable to you?
No, I mean, I was on the staff at the Rams that drafted Jackrabbit.
Right.
We drafted Jackrabbit out of North Alabama and made a concerted effort to go get him. He was the best cover corner, in the draft that year, and fell down because he had to leave Florida and go to North Alabama. Had nothing to do with his playing ability. He's always been like that. He was a starter from day one when we brought him into the Rams. He's always been twitched up, and he's a tough dude. He's always been – and look, Jackrabbit is a very smart football player. He was one of the smarter rookies I've ever been in a defensive meeting room with, as far as understanding concepts, understanding what was going on, understanding really the essence of playing out there on that island by yourself. Now, that interception he had in the 49ers game is a great – now, he's a veteran now, all right? So he's seen through it. He's been through a lot. Has he always been perfect? No. Name me a corner that has. You can't. The thing that he does, though, he loves the game. He understands the game. It's very, very important to him. That's why I was very happy when I knew that they were going to pick him up, because I knew what he was in the meeting room. I knew what he was in the building, and I knew how much his teammates like him, because he's a legitimate player that's got a great personality. But that play he made against the 49ers in the end zone, that interception, that was all off of film study and practice. I mean, and so that's what you are looking for. So, yeah, is he going to get beat? Absolutely he's going to get beat. But he's a veteran presence there that a lot of times helps, especially now that we are going down the stretch. We're in the stretch right here now where a lot of things become real detail-oriented and very important. Not as if they always aren't. But right now we're getting into a different stretch. I've always been a big Jackrabbit fan. I was ever since we drafted him at the Rams.
Anybody in the NFL will tell you can't count on turnovers, but you can count on your preparation to put yourself in a position to be able to capitalize when those moments present themselves. Coach Dave McGinnis is our guest here on 104.5 The Zone. So, Mac, this is going to be a different looking entirely offense than the first time the Titans saw them, but, of course, a different quarterback. It was Tyrod Taylor earlier in the season. Now it is again Davis Mills. What do you make of him as in his rookie season? It's a tough situation that he's been dropped into, but I feel like there's something there anytime I see him.
No, there was. I liked him coming out of Stanford. He was drafted about where he should have been, and he's done a nice job. I think their offense, just looking at it, is a little bit more diverse now that he's back there. Taylor, you knew what he was going to do. I mean, when the Texans beat the Titans here the last time we played, the furthest pass that Taylor threw was 13 yards. Okay, I mean his whole game was movement. His and the broken play and being able to move around, and he killed the defense with his legs on the perimeter. This guy can distribute the ball. I mean, this guy is a thrower. He's not going to get out on the edge and run it, but he's a big, tall quarterback. Clearly at Stanford, I mean, he's a very smart guy, and he's got weapons. I mean, Brandon Cooks is still a problem. I mean, this guy was one of the fastest guys when he was drafted. He still has got that speed. He's able to distribute the ball. And so watching this offense, when I've been preparing for this broadcast, it's a different looking offense from this. Is they're running the ball a little bit more consistently, but their throwing game is a little bit more expanded than it was when they had Taylor in there.
With that being said, kind of transitioning into the Titans offense, Mac, everybody's obviously excited about just seeing Derrick Henry physically on a practice field with all the videos that came out from all of our Titans media friends on Wednesday. Of course, they've been in the bubble or will be in the bubble today and were yesterday.
Right.
We don't yet know his availability, but obviously they're going to make sure that he's completely right before they put him out there to see how the foot kind of responds. With the offense, though, they haven't – I don't want to say that they haven't needed Derrick because Derrick is a special kind of player, but this rushing attack has not suffered the way that I feel like many people would have assumed it would have. The thing that kind of stands out to me, just as an untrained eye, Mac, watching this, is they haven't needed their passing game to be overwhelmingly diverse, but I don't know that there's a consistently – reliable, explosive play presence from that passing game if they don't have A.J. Brown doing something spectacular like he did on Thursday Night Football.
Well, most teams in this league only have one explosive element in their throwing game. I mean, they really do. Some tight ends are different like that, but really just to take the top off and take it to the house, you're lucky when you have one of them, just because of the way that the talent is distributed in the National Football League. That being said, Derrick Henry is right on course for what he is doing to come back. There are stages you go through when you're coming off of IR, when you're coming off of a surgery, that, you do drills with the trainers, you do drills with the medical staff, you stay there. Then when they feel like, and the medical people, you have progressed to a point where you could get out on the field. That's why they have this 21-day window. Then you start working with the coaches. You start doing different drills. You start, being back out on the field. And he's going through that process, which is exciting. But I promise you, they're not going to put him out there until he's ready,
right,
and until everybody else agrees that he's ready. But the fact that he is to this point is exciting because, look, this guy's an elite player. I don't have to say anything else other than that, right? I mean, he's an elite player. He's proven it. He's an elite presence on this football team because of a lot of things he does. First of all, the way he conducts himself, how tough he is, and then just what he brings physically to a game from start to finish. So, but here's why their run game has stayed the same, because they stayed true to their DNA.
Yeah.
They didn't panic. They stayed true to their DNA. They tried to bring backs in that they thought could be able to complement what they are doing. It took two or three of them to do what Derrick Henry did as a singular back, which is an anomaly in the National Football League for most clubs. And so they're in good shape. And then, the offensive line has, they played together a whole game for the first time last week.
No, I know.
That's unbelievable. That's unbelievable. And you really think about the success they've had, even with Derrick Henry, and then since Derrick Henry with that offensive line going in and out. And it's going to be a different challenge for this offensive line this week. Look, that defense we played last week, big, thick, strong, coming, just really kind of bully ball you coming forward. This defense of Lovie Smith, it's completely different. You're going to have to block movement. You got to block movement this week. You're going to have to block movement. They're going to have to block gains. So it's a different challenge every week. And, the one thing, though, as I said, Buck, and I think it's important to know, the coaching staff and the football people did not panic when you lost a player like Derrick Henry. They stayed true to their DNA. They just adjusted and brought people in, but they didn't abandon everything that they had built for years here to begin with.
Mac, just simplify that for me a little bit. What you said about having to block movement. Are you just talking about games up front, or can you explain that a little bit more?
No. You're going to have to. I mean, this is a shoulder hit the gap up front. Be able to disrupt by hitting gaps going up front. They don't lock out very much. I mean, there's a lot of movement up front that you got to block. Lovey's always had this going on. That's why that's what most teams, Buck, that play Tampa 2 do. Okay? Yeah. And even if you don't play Tampa 2 and you drop a robber down, you still want that movement, and that's why their linebackers are like they are. They play, if you'll look at it and really study tape, they play a little bit deeper because you got to play just a tad deeper to be able to play off of those gains for gap fits up front. I mean, it's just a different approach. It's been very successful for Lovie throughout his entire National Football League career. And so, I mean, it's different. It's different than blocking somebody that's going to put 6 and 7 up and just say, I'm going to hit you in the face harder than you're going to hit me in the face straight up. And that's what we played, last week against Miami. Very stout, very strong. It's the same thing that New England does. This is just a different philosophy. It's still good, it's just different, but it's a challenge for your offensive line. And it's a challenge for your running backs because now the gaps and the seams and the second-level blocks and the setups are different.
Coach Dave McGinnis of Titans Radio here with us on 104.5 The Zone. We're breaking down the Titans and the Texans. It was really interesting to watch that game back, Mac, just to kind of see how physically overwhelming. And the Dolphins' defense did well for as long as it could without their offense really being able to give them too much, given that the first 5 possessions of that game were punts on both sides. But I was really impressed with that offensive line in a way. And as you mentioned, the first game from start to finish that they've been able to play together all season long in Week 17. It's a ridiculous thing to say. Ben Jones continues to be a marvel to me. I don't know how many people obsess over center play. I don't know how many people are singularly watching center play, but I cannot think of a more important player on that offense not named the quarterback than Ben Jones.
I love Ben Jones. First of all, I mean, look, this dude is tougher than a pine knot. I don't know if you've ever tried to cut a pine log.
I can't say I have.
Well, let me tell you, you can't cut it with a chainsaw. You got to cut around it. That's what he is. I mean, and he's just tough. And plus, he's extremely smart. And look, he's there all the time.
Always.
You've seen him. I've seen him. The fans have seen him. Every now and then after a play, he'll be on one knee. And you kind of, is he going to get up? Is he going to get up? Gets up every time. I love Ben Jones. He has been a linchpin for this offensive line.
Mac, we're not going to talk to you until several days after the national championship game between Alabama and Georgia. What do you kind of like about that matchup, given that it's going to be a repeat of the SEC championship game?
The two really good teams, first of all.
Yeah.
Two really good teams. I mean, that's just all there is to it. I mean, a nice job getting different people in to the playoffs this year, but guess what? The best teams are playing for this one. I mean, they've both got huge incentives to win this game, and they both can win the game. All right, and that's what you want in a national championship game. You want an even up, and then you've got two Southeastern Conference powers. They know each other extremely, extremely well, and you've got some of the best wall-to-wall football athletes in the country on both sides. I mean, I love the game. I mean, you try to pick a winner. I mean, I'm gonna tell you who's going to win. Whoever makes the most plays, because they're both very capable of getting it done. And then you've got two extremely, extremely good coaches, and then you've got one guy there at Alabama that is just has set another level and another bar for excellence in collegiate head coaching.
Mac, I would never ask you to do a score prediction. I detest them. I think they're such a waste of air in what I do for a living.
You.
I would never ask you to do that.
Well, I mean, it's just, but it fills airspace, I guess. I mean, and again, as I say, it doesn't. No, it's not. That's not my wheelhouse.
We're not here to fill air. We're here to make sure that Mac is able to educate the people and make sure that everybody knows what's going on between the Titans and the Texans and everywhere in football, because Mac knows all, sees all, and is certainly breaking it down all the time. Mac, I'll see you in the booth on Sunday, my man.
Buck, I will see you down at NRG in Houston. Looking forward to it. Thanks, man. See
yes,
ya.
Sir. Coach Dave McGinnis, Titans Radio, kickoff right here on 104.5 The Zone. That's at noon. I will get you started at 9 a.m. Central Time, live from Houston with the Lee Company Countdown to kickoff. When we come back, we're going to dive into some numbers on Denico Autry in a little more detail, because you heard Mac discuss how important he has been to that defense for all the good players that they already have. But from my standpoint, you're going to hear from Shane Bowen, who spoke to the media yesterday about why Denico is so able to help make this thing go. That's next. I can't believe you haven't watched this yet. The Beatles documentary on Disney Plus. Woo! That's some great stuff. Get back. Turn it up a little bit. It's so good. Just watching them kind of like hash this out on live, well, not live video, but you know what I mean. And then just Yoko Ono just sitting in the middle of them, like knitting a scarf. There's no idea that just genius music is being made around her. It's really interesting. Check it out if you haven't. Meantime, we'll save that for the Pop Culture Podcast. Let's get back to some football stuff. Shall we? Now, I may have given away the bag because I teased to start this hour, and then we very quickly got derailed because the Jags are going to interview Bill O'Brien, and that's laugh out loud funny. But what I wanted to spend some time on is Denico Autry, the more important free agent signing of the Tennessee Titans this year. Bud Dupree is the more expensive one, certainly, and there's no question that Bud has been a great contributor when he has been available. The situation, oh, by the way, quick news update for AFC playoff implications. Ravens are currently out of the playoffs right now. They only have a 4% chance to make it, but Tyler Huntley is going to start on Sunday against the Steelers.
They need a lot to happen.
Yeah. Well, that makes Pittsburgh's life a lot easier. Tyler Huntley's been fine, but Lamar Jackson, this ankle injury must be just awful.
Well, Pittsburgh still would need the Jags to beat the Colts.
Yeah, but they need less things to happen than the Ravens would. Yeah. Regardless, I do think it's still relevant. It's so weird when you see a player like Baker Mayfield, for example, right? Baker Mayfield's playing all season long. He's got a million different injuries that you've heard about, and all people like me could do is say, oh, Baker Mayfield's terrible. All he's done is cost himself so much money, and then they shut him down for the year and say that Case Keenum's going to start the last game, and immediately Baker Mayfield has to be, they have to get him surgery like right away as soon as it's done. And you're just
looking forward to surgery.
Oh yeah, well you completely, that gets much quieter than the fact, oh, Baker's not the guy in Cleveland and yada yada yada. No, he's having emergency surgery basically after his season's done because this sport is ridiculous. Whew. Okay. Denico Autry is, I'm not going to say that he is the biggest reason or the only reason why the Titans defense has completely turned around this year, but I cannot help to think that he is the most important reason or the biggest reason that they have been able to just completely turn this thing on its face. Simmons and Landry have been impeccable, and Bud has been hugely effective when he's out there. But Autry, for as many different ways as they use him, and for as much as he sets up for others, I cannot say enough good things about this guy. And he won't say them himself because his quotes are literally, like 3 words long after a press conference. He's not a man who likes to say much. He just likes to maul quarterbacks or help others maul quarterbacks. Listen to Shane Bowen, Titans defensive coordinator, talk about Denico Autry yesterday when he met with us via Zoom.
He's been huge for us. Obviously, on third down, what he brings, being able to go inside, and he rushes outside some for us on occasion on first, second down. So I think his versatility to do some different things has been a big piece for us. And he's been a factor. Like very rarely do you see him not factor in the game. He's productive. He's able to get those one-on-one ones with guards, and he find ways to win. And I think they're doing a really good job across the board, all 4 of those guys, of being coordinated, understanding who they are, understanding who the guy next to them is, and being able to execute the plan with a good understanding of, hey, this guy next to me is more this type of player, whether it's Nico or Jeff or Harold outside versus Bud. They're all unique in their own right. And I think as a unit, rushing, I think they've done a good job understanding that.
That's Shane Bowen talking about Denico Autry and his impact, not just his individual impact, but what he does to create for others. This man, you cannot say enough good things about him. Josh Domsky on the YouTube chat, where you can watch us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch each and every day on Zone TV, and all 4 shows, by the way. Josh says, big thanks to the Colts and their $120 million in cap space for not re-signing Denico Autry. You think DeForest Buckner would like to still be playing next to Denico Autry? Seems to have made a big difference in his game. He's a great player unto himself. But as we know in the NFL, it's not just one player. You have to have the correct pieces in place around your stars to make sure that they can function at a high level. Harold Landry has been a revelation this year. And here's the thing with Harold, though. Like, this is not new, even if the sack numbers are better and even if you notice Harold Landry more. His pressures have been there. It's just now they have other people to help him clean up and make the sack numbers look better. The pressures have consistently been there. Jeff Simmons is a spectacularly strong in a sport full of giant, strong, superhuman people. Jeff Simmons appears to be one of the strongest. He makes, just plays of such individual feats of strength that I don't know that I've ever seen on a football field before. And I don't say that, as recency bias or as homerism, but like in my lifetime of watching football, Haloti Ngata is another one that comes to mind, but Haloti was not, he was an exceptional athlete for a man that size. Simmons is built differently and asked to do some different things than Haloti Ngata, and Aaron Donald is also a physically different kind of player and still hugely impressive. I have seen a lot of tremendous interior defensive linemen in my lifetime of watching professional football. But Simmons, to see how often he does it and the speed with which a man that size moves blows me away. Simmons is more like Ndamukong Suh than any player that, maybe you could make the argument for Fletcher Cox, maybe Fletcher Cox and Ndamukong Suh and Jeffrey Simmons a little physically leaner than Fletcher Cox is. Fletcher Cox asked to play on the nose more than those two guys in particular, though they can do both of those things. But with Denico Autry, I ran some of the numbers, and I'll have this article up at A2ZSports.com almost as soon as the show ends. He's played 676 defensive line snaps this season. He's mostly been lined up outside of the offensive tackle. He's played 416 snaps there. He's been deployed over a tackle 228 times, so he's more an edge player than anything. But watch him on these stunts and games that the Titans like to run that get him matched up on a guard, that he's just more physically, he's more physically overwhelming than, and he's more athletic than. Denico Autry has made all the difference in the world in this Titans defense and maximized the ability of the great players that they all already had. And you're paying him basically pennies to do it. When we come back, we will dive into the conversation. We'll kind of reset what expectations should be for Derrick Henry and give you the latest on his availability for Sunday. They are practicing today in the bubble, and there will be some Zoom availability as well. We're not going to carry that, I don't think, live today. But we will talk about Derrick Henry, and then Evan Silva of Establish the Run will join us, and we'll talk about just how important it is at whatever point for the Titans to get Derrick Henry back. That's next. I'm Buck Reising. It's 104.5 The Zone. Final hour of the week for us. Welcome back. Welcome in if you're just now joining us. Buck Reising here with you until 1 o'clock. Lucas Panzica, he's making everything happen behind the scenes, and we are so grateful to have you guys along for the ride. 615-737-1045 is how you jump in on the conversation. Questions, comments, opinions, concerns, Titans and Texans is the main course at this point. 615-737-1045 allows you to join in. Evan Silva of Establish the Run, he's going to be here coming up next, and we're going to talk about the impact, why he is so, in particular, excited about Derrick Henry. Because if you know Evan Silva, and if you've heard of Evan Silva before, Establish the Run is like the go-to resource for fantasy football. Now, I know everybody's already had their fantasy football championships already, but most people in Evan's position tend to denigrate the running back. And Evan has been out in these streets celebrating Derrick Henry at every turn that he has been allowed to. So we're going to talk to Evan about what makes the difference in Derrick Henry for him. We also have many things to discuss. We haven't gotten to this Elmo thing yet. We can't lead with it because we want to continue the conversation. Perhaps we'll do it before the polls. Lucas has been absolutely giddy to get to the Elmo versus Rocco controversy that took the internet by storm yesterday. I know this is very, very pressing and important matters. And we have some Dean Pease audio that I want to play as well at some point. But just for the Derrick Henry part of the conversation, if you listened to the show yesterday, and not all of you do, that's okay. You have a podcast if you want to catch up with us every day. But if not, that's fine. The most important thing to come out of yesterday's show was a nugget that our friend Diana Rossini of ESPN dropped about Derrick Henry and this upcoming game on Sunday, which was that he's probably not going to play.
Yeah, so I knew that Derrick and the rest of the team really had this game earmarked. This was going to be the game they wanted him to return full and go.
Yeah.
And he'd been working towards that. And from everything I can gather in terms of his recovery, the rehab, it was going really well. It went smoothly as it could. And in terms of his overall progress, he's right on target. They feel good about it. I know that there was a lot of thought that because he's Derrick Henry and we know what an incredible athlete he is and how hard he works, that maybe he would be able to speed that up and get back a little earlier. But anytime I spoke with people close to Derrick, when I spoke to people with the Titans organization, just to try to get that sense, it was always a little bit slow down a bit. You know, they really wanted to give him time. So it really makes sense to me that he's most likely not going to play against this Houston Texans team. As important of a game as this is, you know, trying to get home field advantage, trying to get that first round bye. But, you know, from what I can gather, it seems that they look at it as if they can take care of the ball, and the run game's been really good and it's held up really well without Derrick. If they can just get this win and give Derrick even more time to rest up to get ready for the playoffs, and it's the best decision that they can make.
The best decision that they can make is to not play Derrick Henry on Sunday. Now, I know that most people were kind of anticipating that. I feel like we've done well, just as, you know, to kind of make sure everybody keeps their expectations relative about Derrick Henry. But, of course, you want to see him at some point. You want to see him as soon as humanly possible. And the fact that people were snorting practice field videos like illicit drugs on Wednesday when he first took the field for the first time publicly since October, I understand why that would be the case for everybody involved. But you do have to understand that it's not a necessity to just get him out there right away. And I feel like some people are looking at that and saying, well, how can you say that Derrick Henry isn't a necessity for the Titans to be able to win a game? And I would tell you that it hasn't been that way thus far. The only place where they've suffered, as we've talked about several times this week, is the scoring output. That's the place where you see the biggest drop-off between the collection of running backs that they have been using to replace Derrick Henry and what Derrick is able to do on his own. 10 touchdowns through 8 weeks was Derrick Henry, and since then they have only managed to put together 6 rushing touchdowns. Tim Barnett says, I hope he doesn't start, but get some carries. Again, he's not going to. Do not expect him to on Sunday. Now, I think it's okay. Like, I don't think that there should be any reason to get bent out of shape about this. Would you like him in an ideal circumstance to have that moment where, whatever you want to call it, shaking off the rust or making sure that he's able to get his feet under him? We've had this conversation before at several times this week, but I do think it's important to remind people that that's basically the way that they've approached it. And good news, it seems that he was able to do some stuff yesterday after having a full day of quote-unquote practice on Wednesday. It does sound like he was able to give them something as he worked in the bubble. Now, they will be back in the bubble today. They are going to meet with the media virtually. They have Zoom links sent out to us right now. So maybe I'll jump in on one of those during the commercial break. But right now, it's okay for them to slow play or just kind of ramp Derrick up. Foreman has been great. And I don't use that term lightly. I legitimately think that Deontay Foreman has been great in the absence of Derrick Henry. I think that Dontrell Hilliard has been a great change of pace. And I think the biggest part of it is that they haven't been turning the ball over, which was the biggest reason why you were concerned. Derrick he fumbles, and he has fumbles in his career, but not at the rate that we were seeing early on from those two. And Mike Vrabel actually talked about this, I think it was Monday, with us in his Zoom press conference, where he's saying, yeah, the best thing, you've seen Deontay take the coaching and kind of adapt to what we're asking him to do. You'll remember that he had I think it was like a 21-yard gain, not the one that he scored on, but he did have like a 20-plus yard gain where he did get caught right before he rumbled into the end zone. But he held onto the ball and was aware of the defenders who were creeping up to catch him, so that he had to make sure that he was protecting it. Ball security. And you saw that being the difference from the Patriots game to the game this most recent Sunday against the Miami Dolphins. Alex Manns on YouTube brings up, why would you want Henry to play? If he gets hurt again, that's it. But no, that's not what I'm saying. It's not what I'm saying at all. If Henry is cleared to play, then the foot is healed. If Henry is not clear to play, then the foot is not healed. It's just as easy as that. We're not talking about re-aggravation of a soft tissue injury. We are not talking about a back, where the back issues with the back, for anybody who's dealt with back issues before, it can affect your entire body, not just the source of the pain, but everything else, because your back obviously connects to every other part of your body.
Yeah, I rebuke that in the name of Jesus.
What do you rebuke? What's wrong? What happened there?
Nah, I just threw that in there because Caleb Farley had the back injury.
What are you doing that to Caleb Farley? I've completely forgotten about Caleb Farley. Is that weird for me to say? Just completely forgotten about the Titans' first-round pick this year?
Well, that's what Farley was rebuking, right? That the back injury would prevent him from being available at the start of training camp.
And it did.
It did.
So that's not ideal. A conversation for another day about Caleb Farley. I don't think we need to rehash that. By the way, we didn't even spend any time on the fact that Isaiah Wilson got cut from the Giants the other day.
There's reports about that.
Do you have any available to you?
Yes, I'm going to track it down about confrontation with Joe Judge.
Oh, really? Joe Judge, who once tried or who was prepared to fight his offensive line coach. Joe Judge, who is apparently inexplicably returning for another season, according to many people who have been reporting on the New York Giants. Now, I had seen reports about Isaiah Wilson doing some of the stuff that he was doing here with the Titans, which is falling asleep in meeting rooms, and he brought a set of golf clubs into the locker room and was just kind of practicing.
Stealing food from the cafeteria? Like, what was that?
Well, is it stealing food? I mean, like
that was in the report.
Okay, I think that's somebody just piling, and I don't know, right? I'm not in the Giants locker room. I have friends who work for the Giants too. I haven't really inquired about what the Isaiah Wilson experience was like. He's a practice squad player. He's not like a starter or anything. But Isaiah Wilson on the Giants was, yes, alleged to have stolen food from the cafeteria. And, in fairness, based on what I understand his spending habits to be, that may be out of necessity, even as a former first-round pick with a good chunk of his signing bonus. Craig Mulvey says free food tastes better. How does stolen food taste as opposed to free food or food that you've paid for? I don't necessarily. Stolen food tastes best, Craig adds. You guys are the worst. When we come back, we will speak with Evan Silva. First time he's going to make his appearance on the radio show. He's as hype as anybody for Derrick Henry. And I don't think that he needs to explain why, but I haven't seen as many people as vocal for their love of Derrick Henry as Evan Silva of Establish the Run. He will join us via Zoom. So if you want to watch it on Zone TV, you can do that too. I'm Buck Reising. It's 104.5 The Zone. Welcome back on this Friday. Buck Reising here with you for about 40 more minutes before we get you over to Blaine and Mickey. Now, Derrick Henry is not expected to make his debut, or his second debut, I guess, of the season, on Sunday against the Houston Texans, but at some point he will be back, and there's nothing that I appreciate more than a guest who knows how to pander. Evan Silva of Establish the Run joins us now in his Run the Damn Ball hat. My man, what's going on?
Buck, what's up, man? And I was worried that, maybe the Nashville people, the Tennessee people might think that the hat is a Colts thing, because that's how I remember it. I mean, I know it sort of began with Quentin Nelson and maybe Jacoby Brissett wore it as well, but Taylor Lewan also wore it early on, if I'm not mistaken.
That is absolutely correct. Now, here's the point of contention, right? Because Jonathan Taylor has been an absolute stud all year long, and I don't know how much you want to assign. There's conspiracy theorists down here in Nashville, Evan, as you might imagine, but we'll keep it to the football conspiracies. There is a belief that because the Indianapolis Colts are on this in-season Hard Knocks and Jonathan Taylor is having a spectacular season, that the push for him to be the king of the running backs this season it's been taken quite distastefully here. How have you kind of looked at Jonathan Taylor's season and the MVP chatter that's been around him compared to what, really wasn't there for Derrick a season ago?
Well, I think that a lot of Jonathan Taylor's, and he's a great back. He took his game as a receiving back to a next level, to another level this season. Actually, Derrick Henry was kind of doing that early in the season this year.
Yeah.
But Jonathan Taylor, sort of like Derrick Henry, coming out of college, not used a ton in the passing game, wasn't used a ton, played essentially behind Nyheim Hines in the passing game last year. And this year, he sort of pushed Nyheim Hines out of the way there and became more of their primary receiving back. So that was a step forward for him. He certainly adds a lot onto runs, especially long runs, and being a big back, again, very similar to Derrick Henry. And so he can add a lot onto the runs, but from an offensive line standpoint, I think that you could make an argument that the Colts have the best offensive line in the league. And when we saw the Colts play the Cardinals on that Saturday night game, I think it was Christmas Day, it was Christmas Day. And they were missing Mark Lewinsky, their right guard, and they were missing Eric Fisher got hurt during the game. They were missing Quentin Nelson. They were missing Ryan Kelly. We saw Jonathan Taylor rip a big run early in the game, but besides that run, he averaged like 2.5 yards per carry. He was completely bottled up by the Cardinals in that game. And I think that sort of speaks to the fact that a lot of his success has come courtesy of the offensive line in Indianapolis. And I don't think that the Titans' offensive line last year was good. I don't think it's as good as the Colts this year. So I think that Jonathan Taylor's a little bit more dependent upon his offensive line, a little bit more of a product of his offensive line than Derrick Henry was last year.
Evan Silva of Establish the Run is here with us on 104.5 The Zone. By the way, if you haven't checked out, if you're a fantasy football player and you're not reading Establish the Run on a regular basis, you're doing it wrong, frankly. You're doing yourself a disservice. Their matchup columns are spectacular, and our buddy Brandon Thorne does such great work. I love that Brandon Thorne is writing articles for you guys on the offensive and defensive line play element of that. I really enjoy Brandon's work, and I'm glad that he's been able to continue that work at Establish the Run. So you were rocking a Derrick Henry Hang 10 T-shirt with the the Biggie Smalls homage with it. I've not seen anybody as excited outside of the city of Nashville for Derrick Henry's return as Evan Silva. Why do you enjoy Derrick Henry so much as a player outside of the obvious?
Well, I think that if you were to break down what is your favorite sort of play in the NFL, and the one that hits home the most for me is when a running back breaks 9 tackles and goes to the house. I would much rather see that than even Patrick Mahomes throwing a 75-yard touchdown bomb to Tyreek Hill. You can feel it when you watch it, and you want to watch it over and over and over again, in the famous words of Marshawn Lynch, who had a number of those runs himself during his playing career. But there's nothing that hits home for me more than you could feel it. I don't know how else to say. And those are the kind of runs that Derrick Henry. And I remember early in his career, like, people said that he should convert to fullback, and he was too slow in a short area. I mean, and then even like Matt LaFleur was playing Deion Lewis ahead of him. I mean,
yeah, we don't talk about that when we talk about Matt LaFleur's Coach of the Year candidacy. The fact that there was a Deion Lewis year here in Tennessee.
Yeah, right. And so and so he had to overcome some legitimate obstacles early in his career, and finally, I think it was Matt LaFleur down the stretch, like maybe the final 4 games of that season before he went to the Packers, and they finally were just like, all right, we're going to give him the ball 25 times a game, and it finally clicked, and that's when he needed, because he's a volume runner. I mean, he's not the type of back that you should be trying to give 8 to 11 carries a game. Like, he needs the rock, and and it hurts to tackle him. I mean, defenders make business decisions, and I understand it. Like, these people have families, and they cannot afford to risk. I mean, I imagine, God, you remember earlier in the season, was it Micah Hyde in the Bills game?
And you know what? To Micah Hyde's credit, there was no business decision. He went for it, and he did. I was watching that in the press box, Evan, and I was like, oh no.
Yeah.
Good for him, but oh no.
I know. He's got balls of steel. I mean, this guy is a courageous. You just had, his bravery in the moment was incredible.
Yeah. Evan Silva of Establish the Run is our guest here on 104.5 The Zone. Derek on the YouTube chat says they got to risk it all to tackle King Henry. Indeed, that is the case. Josh Norman, also a just forever memorialized GIF for all time. Also, as a former Bill in a previous year of a Derrick Henry stiff arm. So when you're kind of analyzing, when you guys establish the run, whether it's you or Adam Levitan or anybody else who's kind of going through these things in the preseason, kind of looking at the value of a player as you're kind of assigning and trying to and giving out quality fantasy advice, how do you kind of measure a player like Derrick's value against other running backs of the position? Because we have seen in the 8 games that he did play a higher passing volume under Todd Downing as opposed to how Arthur Smith and before him Matt LaFleur had used him. How does that kind of weigh into and again, for the audience, fantasy advice that we're talking about with a player like Derrick?
Well, for a long time, fantasy leagues were primarily not, you didn't get points for reception. But that has flipped over the last 5 years. Vast majority of leagues now you get points for reception. So the fantasy industry in general struggled with Derrick Henry the previous 2 years prior to this one. And we were on him. We were like, we understand he's got this limitation, but I mean, the touchdown equity that he can give us,
right?
He's got, spiked weak capability where he could, there's only a handful of running backs in the league that can run for like 175 yards in a game. And not even a handful, a small handful. And Derrick Henry was one of them. So we were on him big time. And that kind of like gave us an advantage over the rest of the fantasy industry who, hey, you plug it in the spreadsheet, you're projecting him for, 14 catches on the year. And there are running backs that catch 75 passes in a year. And you're already starting out, in comparison to like Alvin Kamara, who really catches more like 80 to 90. I mean, you're already starting out projecting Alvin Kamara for 75 more points right off the bat than Derrick Henry. And so that when you plug it into the spreadsheet, it gets rough, and Derrick Henry starts to tumble down your rankings. But we held strong there. Now we were down on him this year. We were down on him this year because people were kind of finally catching on.
Figuring it out.
Yeah. And so they were moving him up into like the top 3. I had him at like number 10, and that was like way below consensus. We wound up being right because of the injury. But I mean, when he was in there, I was worried every week. It was painful, because he did add that receiving element to his arsenal, and so that gave him an extra level of value in the PPR leagues.
Yeah, he's not too far through only 8 games from tying his career high. Obviously, he's not expected to play or to finish the regular season with Tennessee, based on what our friend Diana Rossini told us on the show yesterday. But how much have you seen that kind of change, Evan, as somebody who does the analysis? I don't want to say differently, but it's as opposed to conventional football analysis, there's obviously different metrics that you take into account when you're doing things like fantasy projections. How much have you seen that at all kind of shift back towards the style of runner that Derrick is? Because we do see a lot more run predicated offenses, as opposed to what everybody told me like 3 or 4 years ago, where it's just passing. You cannot exist doing what the Tennessee Titans do, or now what the Indianapolis Colts are. Ravens are a different kind of concept because of what Lamar provides you as that extra element. Has the analysis kind of shifted back a little more towards center now that defenses started to get smaller and there's a greater advantage to running the football?
Maybe a little bit. Very, very gradually, maybe. But I mean, it's still, just if you just look like straight yards per pass attempt versus yards per rushing attempt, like you're doing well if you're averaging 4.5 yards per carry. You're doing bad if you're averaging 7 yards per pass attempt. So it's still very much, a passing league, but that's not to say that, it's not important for you to like be able to run the football at an efficient clip, and that you can't win that way. I mean, we there are plenty of it's a matchup league is what it is. It's a matchup league, and as you mentioned, as the defense have gotten lighter, we're talking about Keanu Neal is like one of the best linebackers in the league. He's like a 219-pound converted safety,
right?
Like that is the direction that teams have gone in to defend against the pass. But it's a matchup league, and if you have a big back like that, like Jonathan Taylor or Derrick Henry, then you can exploit matchups. And if you have a good offensive line, I mean, there's a lot of different ways to win. There's not one clear-cut way to win. It is true that passing is more efficient in the NFL than is running overall, but it's really just a matchup-based league, and exploiting your opponent's weaknesses and being able to maximize your own strengths, that's critical.
This is why Evan Silva is a pro, because now he's just allowed me to transition into his matchup column that you can see on a regular basis on EstablishTheRun.com. So obviously Week 18, there's a couple of different – the AFC is still kind of muddled at this point, at least in the bottom of things. The Bills have not yet locked up the AFC East. The other 3 seeds have won their division: Tennessee, Kansas City, and who am I blanking on? Tennessee, Kansas City, and Cincinnati having clinched the AFC North. What from a matchup standpoint, when you've kind of gone through this weekend slate of games, Saturday and Sunday, the matchup that you're most excited to watch, or the matchup that you had the most that you enjoyed most breaking down in this week's column?
Well, just to keep it on, the Titans theme, I think that the way that the Chiefs-Broncos game correlates with the Titans-Texans game is I mean, it's just really important. Andy Reid usually he loves to rest starters in the final game of the season, but the Chiefs can't afford to do that because they still have a chance to clinch the number 1 overall seed, and they haven't technically clinched the number 2 overall seed.
Right.
Now the Broncos are going to be without both of their starting cornerbacks. Patrick Surtain has been having incredible rookie years, out with a calf injury. Ronald Darby out with a shoulder injury. Chiefs are getting back their left tackle who missed last week's game due to a calf injury, Orlando Brown. And I think that the Chiefs should be able to pour it on him. I mean, Drew Lock stinks.
Oh, terrible.
Yeah, he's terrible. And the Broncos, like I said, they're really depleted defensively. But then the Titans have to take care of business. And, the Titans have beat an incredible number of really good teams this year, and at the same time found a way to lose to horrible teams. they've really been tough for me to figure out.
Well, you're describing the perpetual plight of the Titans fan, and this has been even
right.
pre-Mike Vrabel. Like they have found ways to lose games to clearly inferior opponents. Even as we understand, parity in the NFL is such a real thing, and that injuries have been a big part of that for Tennessee this year. Still, the Jets lost, the Steelers losses. That might be their worst of the season, even though the Texans may be one of the bigger upsets on the NFL year.
Yeah, so I mean, we just saw them lose the Texans a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
And the Texans are still playing hard, and Davis Mills is kind of looking pretty good for a rookie. And Brandon Cooks has been balling out all year, and I think that they're playing hard, and they're not going to be an easy out. And so, but the Titans can't afford to blow this one, not only for the playoff the seeding implications, but because clinching that first round bye, I mean, they need that. Get another week of rest for Julio. Get another week of rest for Derrick Henry. Get another week of rest for A.J. Brown. And all of a sudden, man, the Titans look like a freaking dangerous team, So I think that the way that those two games kind of correlate is pretty interesting.
Yeah, and obviously Cincinnati does still have, as you mentioned, some kind of a path to the top seed in the AFC, but there's a number of different things that have to happen for that.
Yeah, and Joe Burrow even came out and said that he doesn't expect to play. So
no, I think that's been made official. Zach Taylor did make that official earlier today. So Cincinnati will be with I can't even think of who Cincinnati's backup quarterback is right now.
A little tiny-handed Brandon Allen. He was the guy who went to the Senior Bowl and he had 8.5 hands, and then he stretched them out and he went to the combine and they were like 9 inches.
That's right. The guy from Arkansas. That's right. I forgot about the hand stretching method. That's outstanding. Evan Silva, establishtheRun.com. I promise you, if you are not consuming their content, there is not more thorough content being written about and distributed to people in the NFL right now, particularly if you're a fantasy football player. The work is smart, it is informative, and it will make you understand better on a weekly basis what it is that you're watching. Evan, this is the first time we've had you on the radio show. I hope you'll come back as we get closer and closer to the playoffs. Again, establishtheRun.com is where you can go, and at Evan Silva is where you can follow our friend on Twitter. Thanks, buddy.
Thanks, bud.
All right, when we come back, we'll wrap up the show. We'll get out of here for the week. The polls, they're next.
Oh, Gabby, can Elmo have an oatmeal raisin cookie instead, please?
Oh, gee, Elmo, that was my last one.
Oh, that's okay, Gabby. Elmo will just take this one.
No, wait, Elmo. Rocco says that he wants the oatmeal raisin cookie.
Rocco? Rocco's a rock, Zoe. Rocco won't know the difference.
Yes, he will. You can't have that cookie, Elmo. Rocco wants to eat it.
How? How is Rocco going to eat that cookie, Zoe? Tell Elmo. Rocco doesn't even have a mouth. Rocco's just a rock. Rocco's not alive.
Oh, my God. That's so stupid. That's the thing that took the internet by storm yesterday. Elmo fighting with another puppet over a pet rock.
There's so many of those, too.
An oatmeal raisin cookie.
It's an ongoing saga, Elmo and this freaking rock.
Oh, more.
Oh, there's so much more.
He was outraged.
Just apoplectic.
I can't even do my Friday, Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us, blah, 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 Which I do mean, of course. I would like, can we get Elmo in here to guest co-host? I have so many follow-up questions. So many follow-up questions for Elmo versus The Rock. Now, I thought about playing this clip last night on the primetime show. Should we give people proper context? Like, what is the backstory behind this Elmo video? Because I'm just laughing like an idiot. I haven't explained anything to anybody.
Well, Sesame Street is still on, which I learned this week.
On HBO.
Yeah, that's awesome. That makes me very happy.
Yep.
But, so Elmo, there's been this ongoing feud. I can't remember the character of the other puppet.
Zoe,
yes. Zoe has a pet rock named Rocco, and she likes to carry him around and act like Rocco is a tangible, living thing.
Correct.
And Elmo just cannot wrap his mind around why Zoe thinks Rocco can speak and feel and taste things, and he gets infuriated by it. And there are several instances where Elmo has just had it with this rock.
Can you play for me just the outburst? I just want the outburst at the end.
You can't have that cookie, Elmo. Rocco wants to eat it.
How? How is Rocco going to eat that cookie, Zoe? Tell Elmo. Rocco doesn't even have a mouth. Rocco's just a rock. Rocco's not alive.
People are listening, and then people are driving around Middle Tennessee, God knows where, being like, what the hell is this? Oh, my God.
Just, there's a whole, if you find the video on Twitter, there's a whole thread of just so many other instances where Zoe is bringing Rocco and wants Rocco involved, and Rocco said this and that, and Elmo, he's just had it. He's had it with this rock.
Had it with the rock. When you told me this, because you were hell-bent on using this video yesterday.
I was in tears when I first watched this video.
And when you didn't give me the context, you said Elmo and The Rock.
Yes.
So I thought there was a feud between Elmo, beloved puppet amongst generations, and Dwayne The Rock Johnson.
I see how that could be misleading.
Like I thought The Rock was going to suplex Elmo in a Sesame Street video or something like that. Like I thought my childhood was about to be I was about to be jarred. But no, it's just Elmo fighting with a pet rock over an oatmeal raisin cookie. I'm glad we got that off our chest. Polls!
I don't know who you are, but I know what it's time for. A poll update on the Buck Reising Show. Here's a young man with a very particular set of skills. With the final numbers, here's Buck Reising Show correspondent and producer, Lucas Panzica.
Can you name any of the NBA's divisions? Yes, no, or didn't know they existed?
Apparently there's 6 of them. And Darrington came on here. Lucas tried to have him call his bluff. He said, make Darrington name all 6 of the NBA's divisions.
And he did.
He did it. He didn't miss a beat.
Yep, he nailed it. 32% say yes, they can name some of them. 46% say no. 22% say didn't know NBA had divisions.
Yeah, I found that out fairly recently as somebody who loves basketball.
Whose side are you on? Elmo or Rocco? 82% say Elmo.
This is the second poll we have. People must think we're idiots. I mean, we are, but no, I stand with Elmo. The Rock does not deserve, not The Rock, but A Rock does not deserve an oatmeal raisin cookie over a clearly distressed fictional puppet who also cannot eat the cookie because he has no digestive system. But I digress. At least Elmo has a mouth. The Rock does not.
TJ says, Team Elmo, Zoe needs a damn psychiatrist. Daniel says that cookie probably still just sitting there uneaten. That's the source of Elmo's rage.
Because none of them can eat it. They're puppets in a rock. It's ridiculous what we're arguing about.
Has the transfer portal gone too far? 64% say yes.
Yes is the answer, but I don't care. I'm one of these people who just wants to watch it burn.
Last one of the day. What's the biggest reason for the Titans' defensive improvement so far? Denico Autry, Jim Schwartz, a normal offseason, or other? 45% say it's Autry, 38% say it's Schwartz, 10% say it's a normal offseason. Jeff says it's better communication in the secondary.
I mean, the right answer is all of the above, but that's less sexy for a poll question. You Jim Schwartz people, let it go. Like, even Amani Hooker is getting asked yesterday, a safety, about, is Jim Schwartz giving you any technique advice? I can't remember who asked the question. But he's like, oh, yeah, I mean, he's around the meetings and he's telling us different things that the offenses are going to try and attack us with because he's been a defensive coordinator forever. He's been a head coach. But, like, what's Jim Schwartz going to tell his secondary or the safety about the technique?
Blake says, I think it's a combination of clearer leadership, naming the defensive coordinator, which the Titans just didn't have last year, and
that's
more
a
effective
problem.
Personnel and the influence of Schwartz.
Turns out not having a defined defensive coordinator was going to cause some communication issues, which was the root of all evil.
And players matter.
Players do matter.
We learned.
Yes. What do you think? What grand revelation are we going to have before next offseason when people are demanding that Todd Downing be fired? I don't need the club music anymore because the polls are done, yes?
Yes.
Get this out of my ear. Get it out of my Why do you like that so much? I can't stand it. I'd rather hear the Liam Neeson music over and over and over again in my head. What was I talking about?
Well, players make defense better.
Yeah.
So what are we going to learn going into 2022?
What was that caveman stuff? Players make defense better. Go football. Smash rock. Elmo eat cookie. I was saying, what witch hunt are we going to accuse of Todd Downing of this offseason when Titans fans are calling for his head to be fired? In the same way that happened to Shane Bowen. In fact, I shouldn't laugh because it's terrible. But Shane Bowen opens his Zoom press conference yesterday. It's Teresa Walker, who we love, of course, and Teresa does an exceptional job. But Teresa opens the press conference with, like, Shane, a lot of people wanted you fired this offseason. And, like, Bowen's just sitting there in his office like, I mean, what do you want me to do with that? What do you want me to say? Like, she's just saying, oh, how good it is. How good has it been to see the defense turn around and all of these things despite people wanting your job, wanting your head on a spike. And Bowen's like, yeah, I'm just happy for the guys. What else do you want him to say? All right, so here's the deal. The show is over. The entertainment will continue, because of course, Blaine and Mickey are coming up next. Lee Company countdown to kickoff. Assuming that my flight does not get derailed because of our wintry weather here in Middle Tennessee, I will send myself down to Houston tomorrow, and we will do the Lee Company countdown to kickoff live from Houston at 9 a.m. on Sunday. Make sure that you're tuning in for that before Blaine Bishop, Mickey Ryan, Kevin Dyson, and, of course, Titans Countdown takes you the rest of the way. Also, the radio show on Monday is still going to be live from Houston. I couldn't get a flight back until in the afternoon, so we'll do the show live from Houston. We'll hang out in NRG Stadium on Sunday night on prime time and discuss exactly what took place between the Titans and the Texans in this final regular season game. Going to be exciting. We'll find out what happens. Talk to you guys Sunday night on A to Z Sports Prime Time and then on the radio show Monday.